Peace and blessings to the family. We will get started shortly here. Welcome to this week's live with Los Angeles Minister Jabbar Wakil. I am Brother Shahid Ali opening up. Minister Jabbar Wakil is en route to Los Angeles as we speak. He's taking a flight. So I will be taking you through most of the show. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the family. Again, peace and blessings to all of you. Truly appreciate you being here with us. Thank you for joining us. Again, I am your host, opening up for Minister Jabbar Wakil, who is a bit delayed in the airport. En route to location. He will be joining us a little later. We are setting up here. Thank you for joining us on Muhammad Speaks News as we are live here every Sunday. And that's going to be 4 p.m., 5 p.m. for the most part. We're starting an hour earlier here. With that said, please take the time, look at the top of the screen there, and check out our website, Muhammad Speaks News, www.muhammadspeaksnews. We do offer a subscription plan to Muhammad Speaks News. We have a premium plan. We have a standard plan at Muhammad Speaks News. As low as $2 per month, you can support independent Black journalism, historic, and as you can see from our thumbnail, live, for the most part, you're going to get a front row seat to the fall of America, Armageddon. As you see on the screenshot here, this comes up on the Twitter feed from Pepe Escobar, one of the people that I follow on Twitter. And if you don't follow us, just make sure you subscribe here to our YouTube channel also. That's at Muhammad Speaks News here on YouTube. Become part of the family as we grow this channel and we grow all of our social media platforms. We're also on Facebook at Muhammad Speaks News. We're also on Instagram at Muhammad Speaks News 1, and we are also on we're also on TikTok. We're new to TikTok. We're having success, so we're spreading across. We're also at Muhammad Speaks Newspaper on X as well. So follow us on all of our feeds as we continue to bring the breaking news here, and make sure you like, share, and subscribe across all of our platforms, as well as subscribe to support journalism, Black independent historic journalism from Muhammad Speaks News. 60 plus years strong. We've been going and we're going to keep going. Salute to the believers of the Lost Foundation of Islam. Salute to our visitors here. Salute to the Honorable Silas Muhammad and Queen Mashaki Muhammad, the Muhammad family, for keeping the legacy of Muhammad Speaks going strong. A lot of news going on here. Check out our channel. We are tracking the $100 million lawsuit of the Malcolm X family suing the United States government, FBI, and CIA. I did a reaction video this week with Attorney Crumpman, a powerful staff of attorneys. I mean, legendary staff of attorneys that have some serious experience in the arena of defending the rights of black people in America. Salute to the attorneys. Of course, Attorney Crump himself, very strong and resilient attorney in most recent times, but there were some attorneys that had experience from working on the case for with the Fred Hampton family and the death of Fred Hampton 50 plus years ago, as well as another attorney that worked with the Exonerated Five. I mean, they assembled a super team of attorneys, and I guess with the depth of the case that they're dealing with there, that you'll need those types of attorneys to go against the United States government. So we did do a reaction video to that press conference, very informative press conference as well. And one of the key things that came out of the press conference, which is on the Muhammad Speaks News channel, the reaction that I did, was that one of the attorneys mentioned that Malcolm was actually assassinated because he vowed to go to the United Nations, citing that the issue of the black man in America is not a civil rights issue, but actually a human rights issue. And as you know, with the Lost Foundation of Islam and the Honorable Salis Muhammad, for the last 30 years, our plight was in pursuit of human rights and reparations and self-determination for Afro-descendants at the United Nations. So this seems to be something that that has really been how you can say, so it's really something that America is trying to keep away from black people. And I know that in the face of the international arena, America wants to keep up a certain facade, and in order to have leverage in certain negotiations, especially what we're seeing up on the screen here as we go through some of the news that we're dealing with this week. Just opening up for Minister Jabbar Wakil, who is en route from to Los Angeles. He will be joining us in about the last half hour of this show, this extended program today, as we take you for a ride through the world, the black world news, and really all of the world news that impacts black people. Again, we're holding up this Twitter feed as a placeholder, but we are actually having a discussion around everything that's going on in the world right now, and everything just seems a little bit off right now. It seems like everything is unstable. There's just a wobble. The steadiness that the West and America that had previously just doesn't seem to be there. So when you get a chance, please check out that press conference with Attorney Crump and the team of attorneys. And I think that case is going to bust the issue wide open. As I stated in that commentary, the assassination of Malcolm X has been some type of albatross around the neck of a Lost Foundation of Islam, in the way that, at least in popular culture, in the mind of our people for the most part. We know where we stand in the Lost Foundation of Islam. However, in the mind of our people, this false charge and indictment in the mind and in public opinion of our people has been mostly negative, particularly after the advent of the X movie, directed by Spike Lee 30 plus years ago now, right? And we have seen our people kind of take a change toward at least the legacy of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in that that movie implies that the Nation of Islam had something to do with it. And I always contend, and if you look at my Facebook page, where people are applauding Cat Williams getting allegedly, I don't know where the source is, but it's floating around the internet that Cat Williams has purchased a former military base, and he will put a production company on it. And this is the second kind of deal, as it's stated that Tyler Perry's studio is also built on a former military base. And I contended, and I made the comment that is it implying that it could be a coincidence that these production studios are former military bases, and as we saw in World War II, Nazi Germany, we saw that the entertainment complex based on Nazi Germany, based in Nazi Germany, was once was a propaganda arm of the military. And in my mind, I've always stated that entertainment has not been about money for a long time. As we know, as we have seen, and we are always under the assumption that the movies and the entertainment industry are about money. It's a profit-making venture. It's business. But it is a strategy to keep the minds of the masses docile and asleep. And we see that in this case that there's some kind of connection where the military bases are being repurposed, right? And they're outsourcing the management to these black directors or black producers in Tyler Perry and now potentially Cat Williams. And they are outfitting these military bases into production studios. Back to Spike Lee in the movie X. Now, if my assumption is correct, we wouldn't applaud Cat Williams, and we shouldn't, I don't believe, applaud Tyler Perry. And I'm sure some of my brothers and sisters who disagree, please make sure you put that in the comments, because some people say the virtues of Tyler Perry is that he's employing black people. But on the contrary, we can also say that Tyler Perry is also propagandizing black people, right? And this is a guy who started from making stage plays on, what would be the equivalent of the Chitlin Circuit. And this is not to disparage, even though it sounds very disparaging, but we have to discern truth and determine where we are in this thing, and who are the players and who is doing what in this entire thing, so we know what we are consuming and what we're putting into our minds and into our beings. So with that said, if we were to assume that Spike Lee, who is part of the entertainment industrial complex, and the movie Malcolm X set out to destroy the reputation of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, job well done, right? And it could easily be seen that, yes, in the minds of our people, the legacy of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has been diminished, and now we are in a space where people have to vigorously find the truth, and we would like to see that this lawsuit accomplishes redeeming the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the minds of our people. That would make the work of the Lost Foundation of Islam somewhat easier, although with or without it, we will continue to fight until the very end. However, that's a kind of a bold statement, right? The FBI is one, but they're implicating the CIA in this as well. And that's strong. Like, that is career threatening, and in some cases life-threatening for you to take on such a task. And the mettle, METTLE, of the attorneys that have taken on this case, they seem to be built for it. This is not for the lighthearted, and kudos to the attorneys that have taken that on. So please check this out. I think this is going to be very big for the next 18 months, and this is something that deserves to be followed up on, this court case. And salute to Ilyasa Shabazz, and as I stated in that commentary as well, for Sister Ilyasa and the daughters of Malcolm X, their life has been completely subsumed by the legacy of their father, Malcolm X. And their entire life has been taken over, and they haven't sit down. They haven't decided to forget things. They are continuing to pursue the truth. In their minds, they haven't settled that it was the Nation of Islam. These were jealous actors acting independently with and of themselves, that this was a government conspiracy to assassinate Malcolm X. And as one of the lawyers implicated, that this was an act of to thwart the efforts of Malcolm X going to the United Nations. So we look forward to seeing that. And also, you get a chance, go to Dr. Mayat's channel. That's Dr. Mayat, MA''AT. Strong sister out of Baltimore. She has a strong YouTube channel. Salute to that sister. She's on all platforms. She's trying to get to the bottom of the truth. And she had a great interview, her last live, which was a great interview with Dr. Wesley Muhammad, who has done a lot of research on the Malcolm X assassination conspiracy. And I will say, salute to Dr. Wesley Muhammad and his excellent academic and investigative research. We're going to have to give that brother his flowers, like today, with regards to the redemption of the image and the posture of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Wesley Muhammad has almost, as it relates to the Malcolm X assassination conspiracy, I can say today that he's almost single-handedly responsible for redeeming the legacy of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as it relates to the assassination of Malcolm X. Go and check out Dr. Mayat's channel and the latest interview with Dr. Wesley Muhammad, as he brings deep and substantial evidence that exonerates the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And to summarize some of his points as it relates to his research into the assassination of Malcolm X, the government, and it's largely based on the legal work done in the late 70s by attorney William Kunstler. And to summarize Wesley Muhammad's point, in that the books that we saw in the late 80s and 90s, especially as people were attempting to capitalize on the popularity of the X movie. Books such as Judas Factor and the other book by Carl Evans, and A Life of Reinvention, Malcolm X by Dr. Manning Marable, that academics who were slanted in their beliefs and wanted to intentionally have certain outcomes in the mind of the public intentionally and perhaps dishonestly overlooked key evidence that implied or that pointed to the United States government being complicit in the assassination of Malcolm X, if not being outright responsible. In that interview, Dr. Wesley Muhammad comprehensively broke it down that this was politics of academia in an attempt to, perhaps not intentionally, but the outcome was indeed there to disparage the name of the Nation of Islam and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So please go back and check out Dr. Mayat's video interview with Dr. Wesley Muhammad. Salute to that brother. He has been, at least on an academic tip, brother has certainly brought a wealth of information to prove the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's position. From an academic standpoint, going into the archaeology, going into different disciplines in academia, into the philosophy, into the linguistics, into the archaeology, into the geology and geography, and many other areas of study to point out the position of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We in the Lost Foundation of Islam, we do an excellent job of proving the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's position spiritually through the books, through the Holy Quran, through the Bible. And we do take references from other works of academia. But salute to Dr. Wesley Muhammad from an academic standpoint, doing thorough research. I remember I started to read the brother's works 20 plus years ago, starting with Master Farad Muhammad, who is he not? And read majority of brother's additional books, including the dense volume Book of God. And the way that brother research and documents his research and indexes his research, and he actually trains the reader how to read academic works. Like, I was a novice until I started I was a novice as far as being able to read and provide critique of works of academia until that brother started to introduce the concept of ghetto scholarship versus academic scholarship. And that brother really helps to educate his people on how to be able to view things. So I just wanted to give that brother praise and give him some flowers at this time, because what he has done with his research on the conspiracy of the assassination of Malcolm X, to me, in large part, has actually given courage to Attorney Crumb and the team of lawyers, including Malcolm X's own children, spearheaded by Ilyasa Shabazz, to bring that $100 million lawsuit, not only against the government, not only against the FBI, but the CIA, which should not be overlooked. That is pretty strong. So, salute to that brother to actually moving the needle. And in my personal opinion, the outcome of which will be the redemption of the holy name of our messenger Muhammad. And this is not just religious banter of religious extremists in the name of the lost foundation of Islam and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. This is just in pursuit of the truth, which we want to see among our people. So salute to the team of lawyers there, and please like, share, subscribe to Muhammad Speaks News, as we will follow that case to the very end. We'll at least try. That's my goal here. Just let me come on camera here. We will try to the very end to bring to follow that case and bring some depth to the to that story as well. So I just wanted to go through that because that's part of the current event news, and I'm keeping this Twitter feed up here of Pepe Escobar, this tweet that came out this week, and this is one of the things that inspired the thumbnail. Your front row seat to the fall of America. Well, this is Ukraine, brother. This is Russia, brother. It seems like we might be on the verge of World War II. Oh, did I say two? World War III. We already had two. We're kind of in the paradigm of post-World War II war with the World War II world in the advent of the United Nations and the world order that came following that, right? With the agreement of FDR, then Truman, and Joseph Stalin, that kind of created the current world order, and NATO and the United Nations and all of the independent countries that we see as a result. And don't overlook it because it was 70 plus years ago, family. Almost 80 years ago at this point. But yeah, we're coming in upon a new cycle, a new world, as we see in the Messenger's book. So I'm not talking just spiritually. We're seeing a serious change of the world order, and the actors that were largely responsible for the current world order in the context of geopolitics are now fighting for relevance in the coming world order. Because as they see, everything that they have put in place cannot stand. So something has to change. So there's rumblings and there's tremblings in the world about that. So with that said, in this tweet from Pepe Escobar, and this tweet is in response to NATO-fired missiles into Russia. So the war is going on between Russia and Ukraine. Two countries, Russia and Ukraine. Russia went into Ukraine because there were some rumblings that Ukraine might join NATO, or Ukraine has the support of NATO, and Russia is not part of NATO. And by Russia not being part of NATO and have no interest in being part of NATO, they don't want NATO anywhere in their sphere of influence. So and I'm not sure the specifics as to why Russia doesn't want NATO organization in their sphere of influence, but to some degree they believe it is to the detriment of their very existence as a nation. Now, why is this so important, brother? Because it is believed, and I've never been to Russia, I don't know anything about the government, but it is believed that Russia has the power to counter the United States militarily in some capacity. So Pepe Escobar's commentary about this, I repeat, we are testing the Orishnik missile system in combat conditions in response to the aggressive actions of NATO countries against Russia. So again, Russia is showcasing this new missile system, which the West calls ICBMs, and I'm not sure if it's actually ICBM. I have to get a little more familiar with military weaponry, and if we intend to cover this, I'll definitely have to do some intense study on this to get familiar with a lot of the equipment that's being used in this war. And by the way, if you haven't been tracking the Ukraine-Russian war, this is 5th generation warfare, right? The new weapons that are being used when it comes to drones and bombs on jet skis and AI. Like, this is next level warfare that's going on. Because Russia and Ukraine is so small, they had to introduce this type of weaponry into the war just to be able to stay in the fight with Russia, who dwarfs them 100 times over. So Russia, in response to these missiles that were fired deep into Russian territory, and these were not Ukraine missiles, these were missiles that were given to NATO, or given to Ukraine from NATO, or the United, or mostly the United States, which is also part of NATO. So Russia considers this an act of aggression by the United States, although Ukraine fired the missiles, but because they are American missiles, Russia believes that, hey, US, why don't you fire at us? Stop sending these missiles to Ukraine and training them how to use these missiles and fire on our country. The question of further deployment of intermediate range and shorter range missiles will be decided by us, and this is Russia talking, and this is Pepe Escobar quoting Russia, by us depending on the actions of the United States and its satellites. So basically he's calling NATO, it's basically the United States, and any other country in NATO is not relevant. It's just a satellite. That's pretty much NATO. The targets to be hit during further tests of our new missile systems will be determined by us based on threats to the security of the Russian Federation. So the tests are online. I did want to show you guys this, but hold on. The tests that Russia conducted were of these Orishnik missiles into Ukraine. Now, according to my research, these missiles can be equipped with nuclear warheads, but the tests are of the missiles minus the nuclear warheads. And these videos of these tests are all over the place. The one that I saw was on Valuetainment, Patrick Bet-David's channel. And the explosion of the missiles without the nuclear warheads were devastating. And with that said, if they were equipped with, they can be equipped with nuclear warheads, the devastation would be 100 times over. And the reason why Muhammad Speaks is reporting this is because the threat of nuclear war appears imminent. And as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us, America will fall. Mystery Babylon will fall. This is not a prayer that Russia strikes the United States, but World War III could be an indication of Armageddon, of the Great War that's discussed by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in The Fall of America. Now, I'll be 50 years old in February. I've never seen it escalate to this point. I wasn't alive during the Bay of Pigs, and probably the closest thing would be 9/11, but that was like a sneak punch, right? So a smaller opponent just got a good punch in, but once the larger opponent got his bearings, he just ran him over, right? So that really wasn't a fair fight. The Bay of Pigs was the Russian ships that were cut off by the United States that wanted to enter Cuba. Like, those are two giants that could, when they fight, it's like Godzilla and King Kong, right? When they start fighting, all the buildings are gonna fall, right? And when 9/11 struck and Bin Laden and the crew, it was like, yeah, we got a little punch in, but once King Kong got his bearings, it was like, yeah, we just gonna just step on you, and that'll be the end of you. But when Russia and allegedly, again, I haven't been in Russia. Yeah, I saw something where they said Russia is painted rust, right? Painted rust, right? So it looks like it could be a giant, but it probably not. It's not. So we'll see. But with that said, this is pretty intense. And in my lifetime, in my 50 years, I can't say that, and I don't know if anyone else can say that. But yeah, if anyone has seen this in their lifetime, please let me know in the chat. But this is pretty intense. We've been close. And Russia kind of has been like, well, if you do this, we shall do that. It's a lot of that posturing that Russia will do, but I never seen them explode missiles that have potential nuclear warheads. So this is kind of some fang showing right now. We consider ourselves entitled to use our weapons against the military facilities of those countries that allow Ukraine to use their weapons against our facilities. And in the event of an escalation of aggressive actions, we will respond just as decisively and in a mirror image. So they say, you pluck out my eye, I'll want to pluck out yours. I recommend that the ruling elites of those countries that have planned to use their military contingents against Russia also think about this seriously. And again, we've seen Russia and specifically Putin posture. But this feels a little different. And really, when the Cold War happened, right? When Russia was the Soviet Union, right? The USSR, and there was the Cold War, where America versus Russia, then the Soviet Union, were going at each other. They never were this close to each other, right? Where legitimately an American missile was shot and landed on Russian soil. For the most part, the Cold War were a series of covert operations and actions, and what they call proxy wars. So what would happen is, in the case of a country like Ethiopia, and let's just use Africa in general. So at one point in the Cold War, when these African countries were getting independence, starting with Ghana, Algeria, and then Ghana, what happens is these are newly formed nations. So these newly formed nations need resource and to a lesser degree, they need resources and to another degree, uh, protection. So by there being kind of two systems in the world order, the communist Soviet Union and the quote unquote democratic United States, you had these two systems vying for the loyalty of the world. As are you with me, America? Are you with me, the Soviet Union, as communist? It was like you're either one or the other. You can't be in the gray area, especially when you're a weak and upcoming and developing country, as many of those newly formed independent countries in Africa started in the 50s. So you had these proxy wars where those newly formed independent countries in Africa had to take allegiance with either the United States or with Russia, and that back then the Soviet Union. So you saw nations such as Ethiopia become a communist nation under the Derg and Mengistu, and you had what they call the Red Terror in Ethiopia because of their alignment with communist Russia, the Soviet Union, become kind of a satellite state where they receive military training and equipment and resources from Russia. So once a country took on that allegiance to Russia, they would immediately be diplomatically reduced by the Western countries. So in that time, you have Angola, which is allegedly so-called still communist for the most part. You had a few other countries that entertained allegiance. And for the most part, you would see little conflicts that arise where American weapons were used by one side. So in the case of Ethiopia and the Derg and Mengistu, who were allegiance to Russia, what America would do then is go in and they would supply weapons to the opposition. Now, the opposition could be a small group from a village. They just went in a country and found us, no matter how small, an opponent that could take on the ruling communist government. And this happened all over the world. It could be a town, it could be a tribe. So in this case, this was the Tigrinya tribe, TPLF, Tigrinian P, I forget the P, stands for Liberation Front, TPLF, which was from the northern tribe. And the United States went in and supplied weapons to the TPLF. So, in essence, when the TPLF went in to fight the communist leadership in Ethiopia, the Derg and Mengistu, you had Russian weapons going against U.S. weapons, but on not on U.S. soil, not on Russian soil, but on African soil in Ethiopia. That's about the closest it got in the 70s, 80s, and I think that TPLF took over Ethiopia from the Derg in the early 90s. And the only reason that they were able to do so was because the Soviet Union had fallen and they couldn't provide as many resources to the Derg. Remember, the fall of the Berlin Wall happens in, I think 89 or 91, around that time, when the Soviet Union had dissolved and become the Russian Federation. And a lot of those proxy wars in it, but those were going on all over the world. Some of you may have heard of the I forget, I'm drawing a blank. It's the war in oh my goodness, with Oliver North, the Sandinistas, where the Iran-Contra affair, where the Americans were supplying weapons, filtering weapons to the rebel group to overcome the Nicaraguan communist government. Now, that is of relative importance to Afro descendants in the United States because that was the advent of Freeway Rick Ross and the supplying of cocaine in a large abundance to black communities starting in the early 80s that transformed into crack that kind of took over our community and created a culture of degradation in our community from the byproducts of the advent of that. So with that, this was the Iran-Contra affair where drugs were sold from Nicaragua to the United States. And it was not just Ricky Ross, but he was one of the major figures. With the authorization of the CIA, that money that was used to buy that cocaine was sent to Iran to buy, was sent to buy weapons and sent to the Sandinistas, which were the democratically supported faction in Nicaragua, to go and fight the communist government in Nicaragua. So that's another example of the proxy wars. So I'm just using these examples to kind of give a backdrop to why what we're seeing with Russia and the United States today is a little more serious, right? Again, those wars, one side using Russian weapons, the other side using United States weapons on foreign soil, where, okay, I give you guns, my enemy gives another person guns, they fight together. That was, they just fought these proxy wars. Afghanistan was another one. I'm talking about Afghanistan from the 80s, where, what was that movie? Based on that movie, the Congressman Wilson's War, where oh wow. Let's go down a rabbit hole with that. But let me check in with the chat for a quick second. Salute to the fam. Salute to the fam. All right. So, Pete Wilson's War. I think it was Pete Wilson, the congressman that passed away. Tom Hanks played him in a movie. So, in that proxy war, right? So the Afghanistan was in the sphere of influence in Russia because geographically Afghanistan shares borders with Russia. So it's in Russia's interest that that country remains in its sphere of influence. And the United States supplied a group of Afghanistan people Afghanis to keep Russia out of Afghanistan. And the people that the United States eventually supplied to overcome the Russians were the Taliban. And the Taliban used those same weapons in many cases to fight the United States. Their own weapons in the war that was subsequent to 9/11. So the United States were in a war where in many cases they were fighting against their own guns. So I think that was the last example. But just trying to give you some backdrop as to why this particular thing might be a little different when it comes to Russia and the United States. I'm going to read it in its entirety. I repeat, this is from Pepe Escobar. This is from Twitter, X. And follow us on Twitter, Muhammad Speaks News. I repeat, we are testing the Oreshnik missile system in combat conditions in response to the aggressive actions of NATO countries against Russia. The question of further deployment of intermediate range and shorter range missiles will be decided by us depending on the actions of the United States and its satellites. The targets to be hit during further tests of our newest missile systems will be determined by us based on threats to the security of the Russian Federation. We consider ourselves entitled to use our weapons against the military facilities of those countries that allow Ukraine to use their weapons against our facilities. And in the event of an escalation of aggressive actions, we will respond just as decisively and in a mirror image, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. I recommend that the ruling elites of those countries that have plans to use their military contingents against Russia also think about this seriously. Again, I've stated we've seen the political posturing of Putin before, but this feels a little different. And those of you that watch this somewhere down the line, please chime in and let me know if you feel that this seems and feels a little different to you also. Because this must be taken seriously. Do you have food supplies, black man and black woman at home? How many days supply of water do you have? Do you have dehydrated foods? How many days supply of foods do you have? Do you have canned foods? Do you have bug out bags? What are you going to do when things hit the fan? Are you prepared for disaster? These are things that we must consider in this day and time. These are things that we have been warned by the Honorable Silas Muhammad to take seriously for well over 20 years. And we are grateful that he gave us 20 years to consider this, right? And if you collected a can a day per week, but not a day a week, can of food per week, times 52, times 20, you should at least have 1,000 cans of food, right? So let's think about this. We have no control over this situation whatsoever. We don't know what's going to happen. Same way when they had the pandemic, we just had to do what they told us. They told us take the vaccine, we took the vaccine. They told us to social distance, we social distance. They told us to shelter in place, we sheltered in place. Because we have no power, and we have to start having power. So we can determine our own destiny when things hit the fan, when disaster comes. And I'm specifically talking to black men. This is the responsibility of black men to protect and provide. And sisters, you can work on that too as well. This is a serious time in which we are living. I had no skin in the game as far as the elections, but we don't really know if Trump is not a war hawk, right? Like, we don't really know if he's actually going to get in there and be able to talk to Putin. If Biden had 2 months is a long time, my friends. Anything can happen in 2 months. There's just a lot of instability right now. So please take matters into your own hands at this time. Let this be a warning of what's to come. And please take this seriously. Russia is warning the United States. Right, and America is unstable right now. I'm not talking about economically. I'm talking about in their decision-making process. So we have a duty to ourselves to make sure that we are protected and we are okay regardless to what this crazy lady America does, to what crazy Babylon does. These people are unstable. These people are unstable. They just had a president that was not that was pretty much an invalid for 4 years, and they have another president who's just a popular figure and has no sense of diplomacy, a real tough guy, right? A real bruiser, right? But not really someone that appeals to have a sense of diplomacy. So we don't know what's about to happen. So I'm not going to go on to that. And shout out to Pepe Escobar for that. And I wanted to take you to our home page, Muhammad Speaks News, on our website, muhammadspeaksnews.com. If you're not checking it out, please check it out. Let me scroll here. We have the subscribe button there. Please subscribe. Please consider supporting independent black journalism. Independent, because I'm telling you, majority of this thing that's coming up now, this war, this is called fifth generation warfare. This is a war for minds and hearts. In essence, this is a war that would be fought with less bullets. Like, we're in the precipice of World War III, and we don't even realize it because the information flow is not going to that, right? It's not consuming the timeline. Like when 9/11 happened, there was no social media. You know, even when the first Desert Storm happened, there was no social media. When Vietnam happened, no social media. So guess what? All of the news outlets were focused on the war. There were not as many distractions, unless you just wanted to be distracted. So in essence, this war that's happening now, the time that we are entering into, this is a time of great information. And this is in essence an information war or a war of truth, right? It can be if you are informed, it will be a great day. If you are not informed and you're not doing anything to be informed, it's going to be a dreadful day. So this is the time in which we are living right now. So with that said, this is the homepage of the Muhammad Speaks News. And what we are going to try to bring you is a lot of that information. As you see in the thumbnail, it's the front row seat to the fall of America. And salute to the family and the Lost Foundation of Islam. And this is what we believe as based on the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Messenger Muhammad, and Almighty God Allah, Master Farad Muhammad. And read the book Fall of America. We will be selling that book on this website. So subscribe to keep this journalism going. $2 a month. Half of a cup of Starbucks coffee. This war is going to be an information war. So this page will be refreshed by tomorrow. And again, as you see, as I discussed in the first part, we're discussing, this was the press conference that was covered on this channel. We're going to try to bring you all angles, and this was the entire legal team. This woman back here, behind Sister Ilyas, is the woman that pointed out that Malcolm's assassination was based on his promise to go to the United Nations and fight for the black man in America's human rights. And I have never heard anyone say that outside of the Lost Foundation of Islam. So this truth is sneaking into the popular vernacular. I've only heard our ministers say that. So be it. I'm not gloating or anything. But we're happy to see that happen. And we're happy to see the name of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad be redeemed in the public sphere. And the Nation of Islam, for that matter, that you can't pin this assassination on the Nation of Islam anymore. All right, this will blow up. This will blow up any false belief. Excuse me, with regard to what the public thinks about the Nation of Islam being responsible. So this is the main articles, and another article that I want to point to you here. This is Sister Sonia Massey, the sister that was assassinated by the Sangamon County Sheriff in Springfield, Illinois, in July of 2024. The sister placed a call that she had heard an intruder. She ended up being murdered by the police who responded to her call. And the reason why this is being brought up now in November is that Sonia Massey, the Department of Justice, the Justice Department, has sent a letter to the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office and probing into their activities. I did a reading of that letter from the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division to the Sangamon Sheriff's Office, as well as their 911 center, and they have sent the probe on the grounds that the Sheriff's Office receives federal funding and that the Sheriff's Office may be in violation of the civil rights of its constituents in light of the tragic murder of our sister, Sonia Massey. So as I'm reading the letter, and as you can see the video here of Muhammad Speaks News, as you can see in the letter is sending a lot of requests for information, RFI. And the list is about 28. There's about 28 items on the list that the Justice Department Civil Rights Division is asking for. And the thing that I pointed out in the reading of that letter is that it's ironic that the Justice Department has a Civil Rights Division, when a lot of the leaders of the Civil Rights Division were in essence anti-establishment, anti-government figures. Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, A. Philip Randolph, and the list goes on. And now it has absorbed the civil, so the only civil rights that can be enacted is via the Justice Department at this stage. However, the civil rights that the Justice Department is probing into, for the most part, is based on the fact that the sister may have been having a mental illness episode. So how they align that is that the police were mostly in violation by engaging the sister inappropriately, and the subsequent murder is that this is a violation of a person with disability. And that was 80% of the demand. As it applied to the sister's race in that letter, they were just like, well, give us insight into your hiring practices, right? So give us a list of applications, how many people were accepted, how many people were rejected, the makeup based on race of the people in your police force, all kinds of data, but that's it, right? Nothing specifically. And the point that I made in this case, as is applied to the sister, is that the not just the Justice Department, but when you have these entities, especially once they're connected to the United States government, as it pertains to racial discrimination, they are so ambiguous that it's almost hard to get a judgment in favor of, and I'm just going to say it, the black person in any of these cases, whether it be EEOC, in terms of equal opportunity, in employment, discrimination, anything you can name, any entity that's supposed to be responsible for probing into, and we have to look up this data to see how many of these cases actually come to a resolution and a confirmed judgment in the case of the black person, any of these cases. But these cases are so hard, ambiguous, and so hard to pin down that it's always hard to prove discrimination, right? Because we know that as black people, we know racism in a lot of cases are implied. It's a lot of things you just know is racial, but they leave a lot of that outline, and there's no way to measure that in the mind of any person. So they leave these things ambiguous. So the only thing they were able to glom onto from the Justice Department Civil Rights Division is the fact that the sister was having some type of mental health episode. Therefore, you violated her civil rights because this is a woman with disabilities, not that she's a black woman. And what I called out in that letter is that this is exactly why we need to pursue reparations and civil rights and human rights, pardon me. I'm sorry, human rights. In an international setting, because you're just going to play these runaround games and look at, and I'm going here, this is a sister here, right? This is our sister, our beautiful sister, Sonia Massey, who indeed needed help, by the way. But the root of her problem is not that she had a disability. The root of her problem is that she's a black woman. She's an Afro descendant in America. And those police don't cherish the human rights of an Afro descendant. And look at this image here, right? How this connects, right? It takes, Ilyasa's 65 years old. She looks great, but that's a 65-year-old woman. She's been fighting her entire life to get justice for her father. Malcolm X would be 99 next year. 99. All right, a 39-year-old man when he was assassinated, and it's taken 60 years to get to this point. God forbid that people are checking out at 50 these days. God, thank goodness she's still alive to be able to and has her mental health to be able to pursue this for so long. Because once the people are gone, there's no one left to pursue these things. And these things just become unsolved mysteries. Now you go over here, now we're in a situation where it's 3 months after, the police officer is still languishing in the county jail, and the Justice Department is coming around and giving a request for information. I know they are positioning this as the Justice Department is coming in with the gold star, and the white hat to Sonia Massey's help. I'm surprised that the Honorable Sister Kamala didn't pursue this at all. So with that said, we are going to take a quick break because Minister Jabari has landed in LA, and we're just going to take a quick break, and we will be with you shortly. All right, family, and we're back. We are very close. Again, I'm Brother Afro Descendant Ali. I'm just here covering for Minister Jabbar, who is en route. He is at the airport taking a flight heading into Los Angeles. So we hope to get him in here very soon. So with that said, we were talking about the coverage of the incident as it relates to Sonia Massey and why it's very important for us to pursue human rights. Because, as Malcolm stated, and these articles are very interconnected here, in that Malcolm did state that our issue is this demand for human rights, because civil rights can be absolutely co-opted. Um, and as we can see with this sister, the Civil Rights Division doesn't appear to be as vigorously pursuing the case as as uh, they should. I'm sorry, I'm getting a message here. Bear with me. Um, Bear with me here. All right. So with that said, um, we pardon me, I'm just getting a message on my phone there. But with that said, we will continue to follow, and this is a great education and insight, and to see how a lot of these incidents just end up in civil court, and people just get payouts for it to go away, because for the most part, America doesn't want this on their record. And we've done a video with the UN Special Rapporteur, Sister KP Ashwini KP. She's been to the United States on several occasions, observing the United States and their and observing their record. And she's done reports indicting the United States and saying that racial discrimination is alive and well. Human rights violations are ongoing, particularly in the area of police brutality. And now we are continuing to see this, and these attempts by the United States just to be able to cover their tracks and to show the world that they are in some type of post-racial society are failing, and UN special rapporteurs are seeing it. So and as we saw in the video where we're reacting to the Justice Department's letter to Sangamon County, that these claims, this request is actually kind of toothless, because at the end of the day, from what I surmise from that letter to Sangamon County from the Justice Department Civil Rights Division, is that this will probably just be warning, right, for the most part, to to the county, right? So no one can. It doesn't appear anyone can actually go to prison, but the federal government can come in and say, "Hey, we challenge the funds that we send to you. We make these recommendations to these and changes, perhaps hire more black officers or minority officers or officers of color, and then we will reconsider whether we will take your funding or continue to give you the funding," which again doesn't help the family. And Attorney Crump is on this case too. We actually have a short video on our Muhammad Speaks platforms that shows Attorney Crump talking, the father talking, and the son talking. The family, the son, I believe this is the same son that she's holding. He's a big man now, but not a big man, but he's a good, a young man. And we just see that These cases land nowhere. We have to pursue human rights on an international stage. And I want to point out another article here: Biden and Trump handshake. Now, look at politics, right, in America. Look at the mess of politics in America, where these people say all kinds of things about each other, right? And they, and during the, and particularly throughout the presidential race, President Biden, then Vice President Kamala, referring to Donald Trump as Hitler. Now, Hitler is responsible for 6 million deaths, right, in concentration camps or however these people were taken out in Germany, right, all kind of ways. So you mean to say that this man is that man? Trump is Hitler. But here you are shaking hands with that man. This is, and people are buying into this, right? Like, these people are basically shaking hands, and at the end of the day, it's just a battle rap contest where I'm just going to say the most evil, vile things about you. You'll say the most evil, vile things about me. But at the end of the day, we're just going to sit down and break bad because we're just joking. We just need the people to vote for us, so we'll do whatever we can to get the loudest reaction from the crowd. So here we are, right? And Charlemagne the God did bring up a point, right? And he's like, wait a minute. So Vice President, you recall, even he was on there with CNN, and I forget, Anderson Cooper, and basically saying that, look, you're basically endorsing a fascist and someone who was Hitler. This was before the election, right? He's in support of President Harris. Now, after the election and after the concession speech by Vice President Harris, we now see he's asking the question of, how can you concede to Hitler? You gave us these talking points at the Democratic National Committee, and you concede, like politics as usual. If you're telling me that someone is Hitler, I think I should take that seriously. Now, again, I don't have any skin in the game. I'm just trying to point out the fact that, were you just talking facetiously when you said Hitler? Because people took that to heart when you told us that's what he was. Because no one should know who is Hitler better than the Vice President and the President of the United States. Maybe you know something, and you're here telling people that, hey, this guy is Hitler. You should absolutely, unequivocally not vote for this man. But yet, you're here shaking Hitler's hand. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. So, we have this article, Biden-Trump handshake, a moment of concern for Black America, which basically, I wrote the article, is that don't stop investing yourself into these politicians. Because one, none of them talked about reparations. Right? So, if that wasn't on the table, then they should never be considered, and we should never be having conversations about these people, because they're two peas in a pod. They're never the same. It doesn't even matter. We need a Muslim, according to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we need a Muslim politician. And we're still, Brother Jabari has sent an update. He's coming with us. He will be on shortly. So thank you for bearing with me. And thank you for joining Muhammad Speaks News as usual. Minister Jabbar will be on very shortly. So please Stay with us. And please check out MohammedSpeaksNews.com. Please like, share, and subscribe to all of our channels. Please subscribe to our website. Only $2 a month. $2 a month. How much is I haven't been in America for 3 years. How much is a large, or at least a venti cup of coffee at Starbucks? Is it still $5 roughly around there, something like that? Just one cup of Starbucks a month for the price of a cup of coffee. Please subscribe. Support independent black, unapologetically black and Afro-descendant journalism. Let me check in with the chat here. Excuse me. Please check in with the website. Excuse me. Please check in and please check in with the chat. And let me know what you think about tonight's broadcast. And let's see here. Let's scroll down here. Not only do we cover national news here at Muhammad Speaks News, also, please, if you haven't, vote in the plebiscite. Vote in the plebiscite. Please vote for reparations on the plebiscite. The link is on the website. It's also at afrodescendant.org. Please, 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 please vote in the plebiscite. Whether you believe in reparations or you don't, vote in the plebiscite if you are an Afro-descendant. Now, not only do we cover national news, we also cover international news. So the first news piece we have, Naira's continued depreciation against the dollar, a growing concern for Nigeria's economy. Now, as we can see, many of these African countries are handcuffed and saddled in debt. And many of these are, and most in the overwhelming majority of cases, the depreciation of currencies are totally geopolitical and political. And these countries have no other choice but to watch because it's totally out of their control. And in this case of Nigeria, the Naira, with a large number of foreign companies divesting from these countries, the value of the currency goes down as a result. And shout out to Nigeria and Nigerians. They are a resilient group of people who overcome all odds. If you don't know, Nigeria, there was like a ban on green cards for Nigerians at one point. There was a ban on tourist visas. And these are easily some of the most articulate, educated group of people in sub-Saharan Africa. And they suffer from a very bad reputation internationally. But they somehow are resourceful and resilient people. And, internationally, and in a large case, the reason why it's political is because by 2050, Nigeria, as it is currently constituted, is estimated to be the third largest population in the world. And what does that mean? That means that China, because they're having a population bomb, meaning that their population is slowly reducing, that Nigeria will surpass China. Excuse me. So the ranking will be India, the United States, Nigeria. That's the estimate. And that the population of Nigeria, which has a very high birth rate, on the global scale, and the United States birth rate is going down, that India will creep into the number one spot. The United States, because of ongoing migration into the United States, and Nigeria by birth rate will be the number 3 most populous country, a black country at that. Now, with population size comes influence and power. Excuse me. I live in a dusty place. So, with that said, there may be covert efforts to thwart Nigeria and its looming exponential population growth and ascension on the rank of countries' national population. And with an educated population, and with a large educated population, you will subsequently get a power and influence on the world stage. And God forbid, to the Western countries, especially America, that a black country have power and influence in the world. So we're seeing that what could be the beginnings of possibly, and I remember speaking with a Nigerian some years back, that Nigeria won't be even a country. And one thing I wanted to point out is that with the advent of the lost foundation of Islam, the Honorable Silas Muhammad, the Afro-descendant nation, with the concept of self-determination, black people in America, when we were freed from slavery, and shout out to Brother Safiwe Baleka for calling this out on the Nkechi Taifa show, that when we were freed from slavery, and he pointed this out from Dr. Imari Obadeli, that when we were freed from slavery, we were never given the option to become citizens. It was like, you are free from slavery, now you will forever be underlings in the United States of America. Self-determination and the concept that was introduced internationally gives us the ability to exercise and make our own decisions for ourselves. And the reason why I call that out in the context of world news, and particularly in this Nigeria thing and what I'm calling out as it relates to the concept of Nigeria and the depreciation of their naira, which is their currency. These countries in Africa are inventions that are not even 100 years old. Nigeria has dozens of tribes. And prior to the colonial powers entering the continent, there was no conception of Nigeria. So when you take a DNA test and they say you're from Nigeria, that is virtually impossible, because when your ancestors were taken from Africa, there was no Nigeria. That's a lie. There just was no country called Nigeria. There was no country called Ghana. There was no country called Gambia. Those countries, and even the names of those countries in most cases, didn't even exist until these countries decided when they were given so-called independence. There just was no Senegal. There was no Ivory Coast. There was no Burkina Faso. Most of these countries, even during colonialism, were called other names. Ghana was the Gold Coast, right? And when Ghana gained independence, they took the name Ghana, right? And from as a reference to ancient Ghana, which wasn't even in the area where present day Ghana is. Ancient Ghana was further north and west, but Ghana took the name Ghana. Fine. And upon independence in 1957, previously called the Gold Coast. So the thing that I wanted to point out in that, and particularly in the context of self-determination, is that when the people of these countries were given so-called independence, you have, like, for example, in Kenya, right? You have in essence about 5 or 6 or 7 different countries culturally in the boundaries of Kenya. So people in the northwesterly most part of the country, when England said, all right, we're going back home, we're leaving Kenya, you can have your independence, but the people in the northwesterly most part of the country and the people in the southeasterly part of the country, you were just forced into this conglomeration of regions that we call a country, Kenya, right? When historically, the people in the northwesterly most of the country have nothing in common with the people in the southwesterly part of the country, right? So the people in the northwestern part of the country are herders. It's a dry area. The people in the southwesterly part are coastal people. They're Muslim by ancient religion, and they are totally different. But when England left, or the British left, and they said, no, this is your country. The people weren't even given the right to determine their future as a people. Now you're stuck having to say that we are somehow this citizen of the advent of a country called Kenya, which again, I think the Kenyan name comes from Kamba term. Don't beat me up, Kenyans. The Kamba tribe, which is a reference. It's the reference to the mountain in central Kenya, right? So people or not even from central Kenya, are part of a country called Kenya, based on a lot of principles of central Kenya, which is the capital of the country. But people from western Kenya, from Lake Victoria, who historically are not even the same Bantu people. So they don't even they share the same linguistics as the people in central and eastern Kenya is a whole nother different place. It's like I've been in all parts of the country. It's like feels like I'm in a different country each region that I go to, because these people are forced to be together. And in a lot of cases, that's why you still see a lot of the tribalism, because they're like subconsciously, I don't even know if they have conscious conversations, because my Swahili doesn't go to that level of thought. I wish it did, so I can try to get an understanding if people do actually have these conversations, and that these people are forced into the boundaries of these countries. So really, if you really wanted to pursue the true letter and the spirit of the International Declaration of Self-Determination, in that each tribe should have been given the right to determine whether or not they wanted to be part of this country called Kenya. And I'm talking about Kenya specifically because I know it a little more than Nigeria. But I do know that this happened in Nigeria as well, where you pretty much have, and they have more tribes in that country, more languages spoken in that country. And these people are forced within the boundaries of that country and forced to say, okay, for thousands of years we existed independently, right? As a people, right? So you mean to say wherever the capital of this country primarily exists. That's where the power, the seat of power that determines what the direction of people in the most remote portions of the country who historically don't even share similar culture with the tribe that resides in and around the capital. I hope you're making sense. I wish we were having a conversation on this. But I'm trying to explain where and how self determination comes into play into all of this, and why, in some cases, you have these countries that have not been able to find proper footing in the world. So, with that said, we are constantly seeing these types of things where these countries haven't been able to determine their future. Nigeria is a behemoth of a country, by the way. Again, we told you their population is top 10 today. And in another 25 years, it will be top 3. And look at the article that comes next to it. Here you have Ibrahim Traore's struggle for the diaspora in Burkina Faso and Ivory Coast. Here's a man that has decided that he wanted to throw off the French out of the sphere. He wanted to get his country out of the sphere of influence to the French. And we did a video a few years back with Ebro and Boris Kojo, who was explaining that the French and the unfair treatment with these francophone countries being former French colonies, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, Mali, Congo, so on, so forth. You got Mauritania, Morocco, Algeria. They are all former French colonies, including some others. Not Congo, Brazzaville. Congo Kinshasa is from Belgium. But with that said, you have this country and largely in part by the military leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traore, which is a common name now. That I'm going to get into another geographical discussion, as Traore is a very common name in the Sahel region, by the way, because again, those countries were carved up into small little countries, but groups of people were carved up with it. So Traore, Captain Traore, is successful so far. It's been almost 2 years since he's been at the helm in Burkina Faso. But his situation is possible because geographically, Burkina Faso is not a very large country. It's a very small country, so it's a little more manageable, and he's able to do so. It will be so in those, as far as the culture, it's very limited in scope. You don't have unmanageable countries like Nigeria, where you have hundreds of tribes, literally hundreds of dialects spoken by people that have kind of been forced together and shoved together in a very small space, and have to, have this Nigerian identity, which is new to everyone. I'm sure most people in that country don't even have great-great-grandparents that even know what the concept of a Nigerian is at all. Like, that country is only 60 years old. I think in 1960 is, so it's still a very new, fresh concept as it comes to nation states. Burkina Faso is successful with holding off the French. We fear for this man because he has shown bravery. He is the definition of self-determination. He's organizing. Shout out to Niger and Mali, who are attempting to follow suit, and they seem to have some type of compact with each other. But again, Mali is a large country, but not as populous as Nigeria, as well as Niger, which is not as populous as Nigeria. And I think some of those places in those countries are inhabitable because of the desertification of those countries. So salute to Ibrahim Traore. He seems to be overcoming the covert attempts to thwart his power, and we shall see what comes down the line. Tragic unrest in Mozambique. 3 killed, 66 injured. This seems to be some type of African summer going on here, right? And I'm referencing, African color revolution. Pardon me, where we had this color revolution in Arab countries. I think it was 2013. Starting in Tunisia, Egypt was another one, where they had these color revolutions where the government was overthrown. A lot of it was largely social media driven. But we see that in several countries recently, including Kenya, now Mozambique, you see a lot of the youth that are attempting to protest the government. And in many cases, it's turning violent. In the case of Mozambique, 3 having been killed, 66 injured in an attempt to have opposition protests. Now, we're trying to determine whether or not this is a true protest of by the opposition, or this is some type of funded opposition to the government. So we will hold our hope and see. We're just reporting and providing the information as it comes to us with regard to Mozambique. And Mozambique is a southern African country, but it's somewhat isolated, mostly because of language. And the concept of being isolated linguistically is that Mozambique is a former Portuguese colony, and linguistically, it cannot engage with many other countries because of that. It doesn't allow for good commerce. It doesn't allow for good social relations and diplomatic relations, although they do occur. However, it can be very limiting, because what happens is when you are a former colony of a European nation, in independence, you are completely dependent on the former colony for guidance. So in the case of Mozambique, it's like you have given these people your language and your system of government and your method of doing business. You pretty much brought these people into the current world order through your nation. Now we have no ability to do business with any other country because we are limited to Portugal and allegiance with Portugal. Now we can attempt to unite where there are opportunities to unite, which leads me to my other point, going back to Ibrahim Traore's struggle. I remember I said the surname Traore is a very common name throughout the Sahel region. That includes many countries. You'll find Traore's, the surname Traore in Sierra Leone. You'll find it in Guinea. You'll find it in Senegal. You'll find it in Gambia. You'll find it in Mali and 2 other countries. I forget the tribe it's specifically linked to. I want to say it is either Fula or Mandinka, but I don't want to say it. I don't want my head torn off. However, with that said, that is one particular group of people spread out over the course of about half a dozen countries. Because when they were drawing lines through these countries, they were drawing lines through the tribes themselves. For example, you have the Ewe people, EWE, Ewe people. The Ewe people, when they span between 2 European colonies, the French and the British. On the British side, the Ewe of Ghana. The Ewe are English-speaking people in Ghana. They drew the colonial line through the tribal region. Then you have on the Togo side, you have French-speaking Ewe people. They intentionally drew a line through the tribe. Now, one side, they can only speak their tribal language to each other. The right of self-determination. They were not allowed to determine, hey, we are Ewe people. We don't belong to Togo or Ghana. We're one people. Why aren't we allowed to have our own country? So you find that all over Africa. So in the case of Mozambique, the only places that Mozambicans can mostly have practical engagement is where the tribes in neighboring countries are similar. So, for example, in the case if you have a tribe like the Ewe in Mozambique and a bordering country being Tanzania, Malawi, I want to say Zambia, Zimbabwe, right? Like if you have tribes that traverse those borders between those countries, then they can communicate. Oh, my brother lives across the border. We speak our local dialect, but that's the extent of as much as they can do. So you generally don't hear a lot about Mozambique. You generally don't hear a lot about Angola, another Portuguese-speaking country. These are very isolating languages. And that's how you can have limited engagement between groups of people, and this is the devil in motion, right? How you gave us these different languages and we can't even communicate. The British colonies. So the Sahel people, in the case of Ibrahim Traore and Burkina Faso, they're French speakers, right? So French speakers can only deal with French speakers for the most part. English speakers can only deal with English speakers for the most part. Unless you have a forced situation where you're forced to learn each other's languages so you can communicate, but they have to be unto themselves for the most part. You don't hear much about a lot of these French countries because we can't communicate with them. It's just that simple. So in this case of Mozambique, we will see what will happen in a lot of these cases. You don't ever hear a lot about it. The capital of Mozambique is Maputo. Excuse me. So yeah, we will keep track of that. Sometimes these things, they break out in places the least likeliest of places, and we will see how big it escalates and it leads to something larger. And you can, again, I'm on the Muhammad Speaks News website. I'm not your regular host. I'm just here for Minister Jabbar Wakil, who is in transit. He's at the airport. I am just here bringing you, and I'm trying to encourage you. Please look at our website. Please like, share, and subscribe. I put the subscription information there. $2 a month, cup of coffee. Please subscribe to us. So moving along, the next article, my favorite country, Kenya. Unearthing Origins, Kenya's Rich Anthropological Heritage. It's a great read. Don't tell anybody, but there are parts of Kenya that are raw. And, from a historical perspective, just a lot of things are still in place that you can kind of get a glimpse into what was even thousands of years ago. Not saying people are primitive, but just from a customs, cultural perspective, you just get a glimpse into that. And there are a lot of places, and to Kenya's credit, they have preserved a lot of that. Some of the oldest bones of humans ever found are found in the border region of Kenya, where Kenya and Ethiopia share borders. And they're making discoveries, and the people are getting older and older and older, that the bones that they actually find. I had the honor of going to the Ethiopian History Museum 10 years ago and seeing a replica of Lucy. Now, they would not display Lucy being, at that time, the oldest known human being remnants found. Now, they will not display the actual bones, but they were in the same building. They only displayed the replica. So I remember hearing that back in school, and I felt honored that I was there to see it. You know, even though I know we are older than that, it's just something for me. Now, Kenya has a lot of that history as well. So check out the article. You know, and between this East Africa region, historically, Kenya, Ethiopia, Somalia, Sudan, Uganda, Tanzania, a lot of rich history here. And this is the type of things that we bring you at Muhammad Speaks News. The world news, we focus on Africa and the Caribbean, anywhere in the black world. We are news for the black world, your front row seat to Armageddon. And we have the last article, and this will all be refreshed tomorrow. The impending economic storm. How a strengthening dollar threatens African economies. So here we have the tyrant, big bad American dollar, who everyone clamors for in every country. It's crazy, to see, the dollar, the power of the actual dollar in other countries. There are places in Ethiopia you can go to. It look like shacks, and they'll have stacks of dollars. It's like black market exchange places. I went to one. I'm like, this place, there's nothing here. Like, how did you get all these dollars? I don't think I had ever seen that many dollars outside of a U.S. bank in my life. But the dollar is very strong, and particularly against these African currencies for the most part. And what was said was that in the light of the election of Donald Trump, and I did see it here in Kenya, that the dollar did strengthen. I looked at it today, and it looks like it's coming back down, but I don't know if that's because of the weekend or the news directly impacts the potency of the dollar versus developing countries' currency. So take a look at that article, The Impending Economic Storm, How a Strengthening Dollar Threatens African Economies. Now, the rumor has it is that these countries in Africa have exponential population growth. Just to give you an example, when I first came to Kenya 12 years ago, the population then was only about 30 something million. Here we are in 2024. My population is 54 million. The country has grown very fast. Uganda, about 30 years ago, they were only about 8 million, about 40, something like that. 50 years ago, Uganda was only a country of 8 million people. Uganda is almost at 30 million people. That's how fast. By comparison, Afro-descendants in America, we've been holding at about 45 million, floating between that for about 25 years now. And I'm wondering if that's some type of impact with the us being subsumed in America, and we're developing even the birth rate issues that come with being in the country. Um, and also, we have a third section, and we'll also be adding geopolitics, science, economics, and business to the mix. We have Reparations Central. Reparations Central, of course, we have been dubbed the Reparations Muslims here in the Lost Foundation of Islam because of the work of the Honorable Silas Muhammad and Queen Mashaki Muhammad and all of the pioneers uh, in the Afro-descendant nation. You know who you are. Shout out to you. Give yourselves a round of applause. All of the work that you have done to mainstream the term reparations. Salute to all of you. So with that said, Reparations Central is our, way of reporting reparations news. A lot of it is going to be in the realm of studies, not just not just reparations as they are being discussed, but we wanted to highlight the issues that feed into the reason why we absolutely need reparations. So please, again, if you haven't check out MuhammadSpeaksNews.com. Please like, share, and subscribe these articles with your family, friends. Have conversations around them. So with that said, we have Reparations Central. The first article we point out addressing the urgent call for equitable credit access, a critical examination. Article mainly goes into the issue that there may be unfair discriminatory practices of having credit, right? I thought that there was no judgment call when it came to credit. Well, that's what I thought, as a young man. But as I saw how the system worked, we actually are starting to see that a lot of those things are coming to light. And like with the Sonia Massey issue, as well as the Malcolm X $100 million lawsuit, what we've known for 30 years, people are just now doing the studies on this. So it's going to be you leave it up to these people, it will be another 30 years before any action is taking place, let alone reparations. So the urgent call for equitable, we're not calling for anything but reparations. However, the examination brings to light the fact that there are discriminatory practices in credit access, specifically for Afro-descendants in America. Starting with the very popular, we had it on this website for some time, Navy Federal. In the last year, were called out because they were denying applications for black families. And we've seen this all over, from time to time, but Navy Federal being the biggest and most latest one. And this just feeds into the fact that we absolutely need reparations, right? Where we can't get a fair shot in the country, and no amount of Justice Department civil rights division probes are going to help resolve this, right? Like, we're just putting the keys in the hand of the people who are causing this to happen, to giving them the chance to actually fix it, and they're not fixing this. And we just have to say enough is enough. We are going to the international arena to get a resolution to all of these things, as you're going to see from time to time on Reparations Central. Sent the biggest article here, headliner: State of Housing in Black America report unveils urgent state of emergency, right? Here, we are in a situation again. This is particularly for the Navy federal issue where mortgage applications were being denied on a discriminatory basis, where all of the numbers were lined up, same credit score, same income, etc. Black family versus white family. Black family was denied a lot more often, which are arbitrary decisions based on the loan officer to say black people are a liability. I thought race wasn't built into credit access. All right, so you mean it's not build yourself up by the boots, not build put yourself up by the bootstraps? It's not that, right? It is if you get a sucky loan officer, it would determine whether or not you get this mortgage, which is horrible experience. And again, here's addressing we need another Justice Department Civil Rights Division letter to go to Navy Federal, so Navy Federal can respond with they're gonna put a black person as the head of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I know it sounds like a right wing person, right? Where I'm attacking DEI. I've worked in corporate America, where I see, all right, this is how we're going to address this issue, right? So we don't get called out again. We have or we hire. So mostly these are HR positions. All right, then we're gonna have a little Kwanzaa celebration when Dr. King holiday rolls around. All right, and then now you add Juneteenth into the mix, and any other black holiday that I'm in, and Black History Month as well. So that's all Navy Federal is going to do to respond to the probe. So they're federal fund, and that's Navy Federal. Like they serve, they exist because they serve a wing of the U.S. military. And here we are, how did we get to a state of emergency? In a post-Obama era, that's almost impossible. How did that even happen? So here we are, state of emergency. There it is for home ownership, and poor millennials and Gen Z Afro descendants. You should be running from America. The homes that our grandparents, the baby boomer generation of Afro descendants had, that they bought for $15,000 in 1972. You're not going to have a home in America. Come home to the Afro-descendant nation, come home to the Lost Foundation of Islam, because it's not looking good. And me as a Gen Xer, it didn't look good for me as a young person. But somehow they squeaked through, some people. Sorry for that, young people. But you're just not going to you're going to be stuck in the cities, in apartments, paying exorbitant rents with forever roommates that you don't like. You can't build families. You can't save money, nothing like that. And I know you see it. So if you're listening, we're here with you. We're here for you. And we're going to continue to bring this information to you. And now I want to bring your attention to the article on the bottom left-hand corner. Liberated Zones, an easy step to Black justice and reparations. Shout out. I want to give an extra special shout out to the human rights policy officers. I know Sister Shirley is going to be all over this video. She's in all of the videos. Sister Shirley Baker, human rights policy officers, and an extra salute to Sister Malika, Sister Ophelia, and Brother Ramzu, who wrote this article about liberated zones, an easy step to Black justice and reparations. I call Brother Ramzu the subject matter expert on self-determination. Well, let me even drill it down even further. Black self-determination actions and objectives. Like, brother is really tuned into the act of how you exercise self-determination. And in all of the cases where he talks about liberated zones, and these are on the soil of the United States, he is 100% right to the letter of the law of self-determination. So please check out the article and enlighten yourself on what true self-determination is. True self-determination, and he calls out the Kwanzaa definition many times, Kujichagulia, which is Swahili. And I don't hear anybody in Kenya I never heard anybody in Kenya say Kujichagulia, even though it's there. It's a legit Swahili word, but I'm just finding the irony, and I never heard that word used. I've heard Ujamaa, Nia, Ujima. I've heard those, but I've never heard Kujichagulia. But you say it, they know what it is. But anyway, I'll divert from that. With that said, the Kwanzaa definition, Kujichagulia, is more of an ambition, right? So it's like self-determination is like just stay determined. No, self-determination is a lot more layered in that. This is more than just sloganeering. So please read Brother's article here. And shout out to the human rights policy officers. Brothers doing great work out there. Brother enlightened me, and the decline. And there's a great article he pointed out. I've read on my other channel, the decline of self-determination, that really gave me insight, like mind blowing. I have to refer to it time and time again because I really didn't understand the Declaration of self-determination, and so, for example, I just talked about the African nations and the tribes and how all these tribes get roped in, right? The rope that binds into these countries. You have a country called Kenya, right? And, people say, get rid of tribalism. That's the slogan. Like, tribalism is tearing apart Africa. It's like, no, the British gave you a country called Kenya that you didn't ask for. Your great-grandfathers didn't ask for, right? So it's like, no wonder, right? Like, they didn't ask us Kikuyu tribe, right? If we wanted to be in this country called Kenya, right? We didn't even ask to be colonized, right? So before you even had Kenya, we had it's called the East African British Protectorate. We didn't ask for that. We were just the Kikuyu people living in central Kenya doing our Kikuyu thing, speaking our Kikuyu language. Why do we have to speak Swahili now again? Who said that? Who asked us that? And that applies to every other tribe, right? You didn't ask us to be roped in to these countries. And it's true for Afro-descendants in America. When you read Abraham Lincoln, when you read the Declaration of the Emancipation Proclamation. Sorry, it's 2 a.m. here in Africa, so forgive me. The Emancipation Proclamation, Abraham Lincoln, you read that. We still didn't. Still didn't ask to be here. You brought us to America. We didn't ask to be here in the first place. You freed us from slavery when we shouldn't have been here in the first place. Now we're here. Now you're gonna drag us. We still didn't ask to be here, but you're gonna drag us through 100 years of Jim Crow again. We didn't ask to be here. You're gonna sell cocaine to get guns for the Sandinistas in Nicaragua, get all of us, most of our communities and inner cities strung out on this crack cocaine. We didn't ask to be here, right? In the first place. So why are we negotiating with you on anything that's going to allow us for us to be here? Let us decide, go for our ancestors, whether we wanted to be here or not in the first place. That's self-determination. We have to decide our state of existence, not just sloganeering. So shout out to Ramzu and the human rights policy officers. I only went to 2 of his calls, I wish I could make it to every call, but a shout out to that brother who exercises, who at least has the understanding of how to exercise and what must be done in the area of self determination. And then we have another. So I wanted to point the article out on the upper right hand corner. Let me do a quick check in. Rashid Shabazz, Assalamu alaikum, greetings. Yes, sir. Sorry, I should have been checking in a lot more. I've just been running off at the mouth. Salute to the family. Salute to the family. Thanks for the information. Reminds me of a show that was pulled from PBS Airwaves, 1991. It was called South Africa Now. They went around the continent exposing the external influences. Yes, sir. Hopefully he's still in the room. South Africa is another country. You have many tribes, and a lot of these historically they had disagreements in the first place. There was no concept of these countries, so they of course they're not gonna get along. Like, I don't speak your language. I'm Kikuyu. Where did this? We had our own thing. We had our own songs. We had our own literature. We had our own history. Why do we have to speak Swahili again? So on the surface, it makes sense that there not be tribalism, right? We want unity, 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 right? But you can't get to unity until you answer the first question. Why did you colonize us and make the boundaries of this country in the first place to begin with? Why do we have to deal with this in the first place? Why weren't we allowed, when you decided to leave, why didn't you withdraw the boundaries and leave us in the state that you found us? So in essence, these African countries that exist now still exist at the will of the colonizers. Likewise, in America as Afro-descendants, let me go back to this. Us negotiating civil rights coming out of the Justice Department when things like the Sonia Massey incident happens. Your Civil Rights Division and Civil Rights Movement, you're not doing us any favor. Because first of all, you took our ancestors from another place and brought us into this country in the first place. Then you freed us and didn't give us the option of putting us back in the state that we were, that you found us. Now you are tricking us to stay by forcing us to negotiate our civil rights when these incidents happen. That's the issue here. And that's the issue all over the black world. We didn't ask for any of this. So what system are we working inside of? We didn't even ask to be in that system. So it's like you take me to a prison. I'm trying to get a good analogy here. You take me to a prison that I'm unlawfully incarcerated. It's like, what cell you want? I don't want to be in any cell. I don't want to be here at all. And that's the issue. And that's the brilliance of the Honorable Silas Muhammad and the brilliance of our great freedom fighters. And again, shout out to Brother Ramzu for really digging in deep and hunkering down with the topic of self-determination and the concept of liberated zones. It might be seen as disruptive, but self-determination is not pretty. Self-determination is not pretty. I've been reading that article, The Decline, and I should put that on the site, and we should go through a reading of it. The decline of self-determination. Countries that were valid and rightful in seeking self-determination, the reason why there was a decline in with the letter of the Declaration of Self-Determination is because in order for a peoples to seek to really embrace the concept of self-determination, bad things had to happen, and they didn't want that to continue. At least bad things for the nation state that the peoples wanted to be pursue self-determination against. So there's subsequently a decline, but the pursuit of self-determination is it's not pretty, and it's a very risky thing, and one has to make a decision whether or not they want to pursue that in the first place. 30 years ago, when our people, Lost Foundation of Islam people, first approached the United Nations, the State Department had a comment, right? That's what I'm talking about. It's tension causing. There is no way to negotiate yourself into self-determination. One side doesn't want it, and they really don't want it. And I'm not just talking about in the case of Afro descendants in America. This paper outlined every instance where every group of people had every right to pursue self-determination, and they wanted it. The state that they were part of did not want it, and they fought against it. And in some cases, blood was shed. And that's self-determination. I'm not encouraging anyone to fight here. I'm just trying to give the realities of what self-determination in the letter of international principle article. Is it the article? I'm not saying Declaration article of self-determination. Is the letter of the article. Like okay, I'm going to leave that alone. I'm just going to move on because I wanted to get to the point about this article here. In the context and framework of reparations and how this is being lost internationally, domestically in the United States, and in the context of the self-determination conversation that I was just having, healing historical wounds, Palm Springs is reparations for displaced families. Again, this is what you're taken to prison wrongfully, and you're given they're telling you it's good that we're giving you the decision of which cell we want you to sleep in. So isn't it okay? You get to live in one of the cells in this prison that you shouldn't be in the first. Healing wounds. So how does that make sense, Brother Afro Descendant Ali? In the case that most of the reparations initiative, this is Palm Springs, California. Families are displaced. Now reparations are being thrown around on everything. Okay, we want to correct all of these wrongs in recent history, and in the case of Evanston, Illinois, and the reparations commissions, and not to poo-poo what people are doing and have done, but let's just go into these local reparation initiatives and where they may fall short. Not to poo-poo the great works. Shout out to Marcus Coleman, Fulton County Reparations Commission. Shout out to everyone that's doing great work. But without a self-determination component, it doesn't go all the way through to the intention of reparations, which is to truly repair the damage, right? And as I was stating in the case of some of these other people, in that putting people in the position that you found them in the first place, right? You have people in Palm Springs, California, who were displaced and because of discriminatory practices to build higher value property. And we've seen this throughout the United States. And they're framing this as reparations. No, this is, you did wrong to some black people. Yeah, you should pay them, and we're going to come back and get reparations as descendants of slaves in America, as Afro descendants, for the historical human rights violations. Right, but you want to frame this and lock these injustices in these local initiatives in reparations because you don't want to pay us for reparations, right? As a people in America, right? So read the article "Healing Historical Wounds" in Palm Springs, California. It's an unfortunate incident. I was watching a documentary the other day about Chavez Ravine in Los Angeles when they built Dodger Stadium. There, it was a thriving Mexican community, and people were displaced, and people kind of had to move on. People died, but there's like one or two really hardcore people that, who lost their homes when they built Dodger Stadium there in Los Angeles. And they're holding out to this day, and others have kind of left them hanging. And like I said, some have died, but it's very similar to that incident. Again, we see this going on all over the country. We know the history of black people, where interstate highway system was built through black communities throughout the country. All these all these infractions, on different levels. I mean, where do you even start? The Rosewoods, the Tulsa, Oklahomas, the cities that are under those lakes, all of that information coming light. If you fought every one of those battles, right, and you framed it in reparations, it's better to just go internationally, or we should consider going internationally and just fight and put all of our resources behind it, right? And pursue reparations internationally in one fell swoop. Get it over with, America. Don't drag it out. Just get it over with, because this is not going to stop. So you can give us Palm Springs, you can give us another place, but let's just settle it internationally. But if you think that you can get away with it, that's fine. But this is not going to stop. This is the will of God Himself. So let it be. You can put black people on display and that's it. But we're not negotiating with people that we shouldn't have never had to negotiate with in the first place. So please check out MuhammadSpeaksNews.com, family. So we do take recommendations on Muhammad Speaks News here. So I did want to, I didn't want to go into pop culture, but this is the people's paper. So if you have any suggestions for Muhammad Speaks News, please check in with us and let us know what you'd like to see. So we are putting some pop culture stuff here. We are putting some we're gonna and how I figure we can manage this is looking. We don't want to glorify the culture, but we just want to see how some of the conspiratorial parts of the industry, at least from a legal standpoint, so we can get a greater grip on what's actually going on here. So with that said, we have latest details of justice claims in reference to the detention of Sean P. Diddy Combs, and we'll see what's going on. It's funny, I put on my Facebook page, follow me on Facebook, Afro Descendant Ali. On the Facebook, there was a former BBC reporter who was just facing charges of sexual misconduct with dogs. Yeah, sexual conduct with dogs. I ain't heard nothing about that. I'm not justifying what P Diddy did, but I'm also saying I need some of the same energy with my man, not my man, but the guy that's dealing with the sexual misconduct of dogs versus the what's going on with Diddy. I need them to sensationalize that too, and the way they dragged Michael Vick. But we know what's going on here, and more people need to call it out. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we let them crucify black men to the benefit of others, then we just let them. But we have to call it out, right? We're not saying that what black men are doing is okay, but I need the same energy, because dogs don't sound, sexual misconduct with dogs just sounds unstable, abnormal to me. And that needs to be sensationalized as much, and his name needs to be dragged. Well, he said no one really knows who he is. Everybody knows who Diddy is. I didn't know who Jeffrey Epstein was either. But somehow he found his way out there too, so we need to add another one. But what normally happens in these in the media is that once they find a way to disparage if they have to disparage a white person, they kind of go harder on the black people. But again, not justifying what the alleged allegations are with Sean Combs, but we want to look. We don't want to sensationalize it, but we want to look at the legal documents and paperwork to see if there are any discrepancies. In a lot of cases, a lot of these brothers in the court of public opinion, we think that they're going to jail for one thing, and they end up going to jail for tax evasion. So we need to make sure what is being alleged is actually what he's going to court for. And in the case of Little Dirk in Chicago, we just want to keep an eye on. I don't know if he's still all that young. I know he's been out for a while. He might be 30, but or approaching 30. But in the case of Lil Durk, we see that in a lot of cases, some of these people, we see a lot of young brothers nationally who are coming under these RICO charges that we put on Muhammad Speaks when Young Thug was given his sentencing at the closing of his trial, or pardon me, I think it was the judgment. We see a lot with these RICO charges. A lot of brothers, we just want to see what's up with that. How they're rounding up these brothers and railroading them, and in a lot of cases, they're giving these brothers a lot of years. These young brothers, a lot of them will never see the streets again. Word is, like, when it comes to like the federal prison system, it used to be a Club Med situation 40 years ago. They say, so I heard one brother say, you'd rather go to the state pen than the federal system right about now, which is almost unheard of. But if that's the case, because they're throwing all of these young brothers under these RICO charges, getting 50 and 60 years at a time, I thought it was bad as a Gen Xer when those brothers in the 90s were getting 25, 30 years. Some of them brothers my age just coming home from like 1992, 93, 94, 95, just coming home now as old men like me. You know, I thought that was bad. You know, they used to call them football numbers because, you know, the numbers on a football jersey are higher than in any other sport. Usually, you know, in basketball, the numbers a lot of times single digits into the teens. And football, you can get number 90 something. So they were calling them football numbers back then. But these young brothers today, they're getting hard years for just seemingly their felonies, but they don't. The crime and the time don't seem to mesh with each other, and we just want to take a closer look here at Muhammad Speaks News. You know, tell the Justice Department, write Civil Rights Division, write a letter to that. How about that? You know, I wonder if they have. Maybe they have. I don't know, but I need to see it. So that's the angle we want to take with popular culture here at Muhammad Speaks News. Not to sensationalize it, and not to clout chase or anything like that, but we want to take a different perspective than what everybody else is taking a look at. To look under the hood in the United States and see what's really going on, because as it's always said, the black population, we are very suspicious people, and when they start coming after black men, I'm not joining. We shouldn't join the crowd. We should really look under the hood to see what's really going on with these people. And if these people are guilty for what they said, we're not trying to justify it, but we want to see, we need equality, we need egalitarianism. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, and we just going to take a close look at what's going on there. And last but not least, I'm not sure if Minister Jabbar will be reaching us. I know we are in a position, where I know the airport. My goodness, between TSA and dealing with different kind of people, different attitudes, being a black man, you need a day to decompress from the airport. So I'm not sure if brother will be joining us, but we still have a little time here. We do have a Muhammad Speak shop store. We have 4 slogans that we're working with. Speak the truth, slogan of the Honorable Salis Muhammad. I don't know if you call it a slogan, but a principle. We are human beings, the great saying of the Honorable Salis Muhammad at the United Nations. We are human beings. We were not seen as human beings before the Honorable Salis Muhammad went there. We didn't even exist. So we are human beings. All of these come in a t-shirt, hoodie, and mug. Hair Silas. So you'll have a Hair Silas mug, Hair Silas hoodies, Hair Silas t-shirts, all shapes, sizes, colors. So they're not just in the color displayed. If you click on the video, let's click on the Hair Silas mug, and let's show you. Get you a mug. Get you a Kwanzaa gift, right? It's coming up. Bear with me here. All right. Link is failing. All right. Link. I wanted to show you the colors. I don't know if it's my internet is too slow. Let's see here. There we go. The mug comes in a black. So please purchase something for your loved one, for yourself. Cold weather, get that hoodie. Follow us on social media as well. We are on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube. I'm going to put something else up here. Bear with me, family. Check out our articles, our videos of the Honorable Salas Muhammad. We also have videos of the messenger. We will be adding books to the website soon, like tomorrow soon. Message to the Black Man, Our Savior Has Arrived, Fall of America, all 5 books. How to Live, book 1 and 2. We're going to have FOI pins, GCC pins, and Flag of the Nation of Islam. So, and much, much more. We hope to have bean pies this week. We'll see. We're negotiating. Negotiating is going a little slow. And I may have to do some. Let me go back way here because it's not doing. Okay, so it's not cooperating. I may have to troubleshoot that. But with that said, I am going to sign off here, family. It's been great. We may have to do one large infomercial for you. I may have to design something like that. We really want to do a drive to get people to subscribe to our channel. Only $2 a month. If you could do so right now, please do so. For those of you who are listening, watching, I wish I knew where you were checking in from. And I would love to give you a shout out, but it's okay. I appreciate it. I'm grateful for you to log in, for signing in, checking in, like, share, subscribe, all of our content. Look forward to more content. If you have any questions, reach out to us, MuhammadSpeaksNews@gmail.com. That's Muhammad Speaks News, one word, @gmail.com. And we will make sure that we will respond to you immediately. You can also reach out to us on our website, not the website, on our Facebook as well, Muhammad Speaks News. All of our social media platforms, I monitor those, I check those. So with that said, Brother Afro-Descendant Ali, I enjoyed spending almost 3 hours with you, and we look forward to getting with you soon. In the greeting words of peace and paradise, Assalamu alaikum, family.